wanted to write from like the moment I couldn't even spell.
But I do agree. I got a lot to learn when it comes to acting. I still got to practice.
We're on the radio promoting the show and had invited people.
Better than the first. The Adam Talks Podcast, Season 2.
Welcome back to another great episode of the Adam Talks Podcast, right here on whatever platform it is you're watching or listening to it on. That's right, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Go and check us out on all those platforms. Today, we have an amazing episode. We have an episode with a guy that I didn't know if I was actually going to get to talk to, but thankfully I did get to talk to him, and we had such an awesome episode. We are talking today to a former Mr. Money in the Bank winner from Wrestlemania 23, a former WWE United States Champion, and a two-time TNA Heavyweight Champion. A guy who's really an awesome dude, a dude that's really laid back, a guy that's easy to talk to, and very thankful for that. We're talking to the one, the only Mr. Anderson, formerly known as Mr. Kennedy. Guys, before we get into this episode, if I can ask you to do one thing, if you just do one thing for me, it would help out so much. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and if you're on any of the other streaming platforms, hit that follow button, drop a comment. And guys, you have no idea how much that actually helps. It means the world to me whenever you're able to do that for me. It takes 2 seconds out of your day. So if you can do that for me, I would be so very grateful for that. But guys, I'm not going to keep you any longer. This is my conversation with Mr. Anderson. So we have an awesome guest on today. It is awesome to have this guy on. We have a former Mr. Money in the Bank from Wrestlemania 23, former WWE United States Champion, a former two-time TNA Heavyweight Champion, Mr. Anderson, formerly known as Mr. Kennedy. How's it going, man?
Fantastic, man. Thank you. That was a pretty solid rendition there.
I've heard that you have to really put your gut in it whenever you're doing it.
You got to use your diaphragm. You got to use your diaphragm.
Diaphragm.
Yep.
Do it all from the chest. Let it all out.
We have, at the academy, at my wrestling school, we do matches on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we sometimes we go live on TikTok for those. And my students will, they'll have something really good to say to the other person they're working, but they'll only say it to them. And I'm like, the people in the back row got it. If the person that's sitting in the front row can't hear that, you're throwing that away. So you gotta, people gotta hear you. Yeah.
So have you always been a loud character as far as the Anderson Kennedy character? Has it always been a loud character? Did you start as something different?
I honestly can't remember. I think so. I think the first, somebody sent me one of my very first interviews, and I was over the top. The Rock was always one of my favorite promos in the business.
Yeah.
And I didn't try to be like him. I wanted to be my own variation of that, but that was what I was drawn to. When I was in high school, I would do impersonations of teachers and stuff like that, and I would do them in public places like pep rallies and basketball games. I announced basketball games. I was always kind of like a class clown, and it was just kind of a natural progression to get into the wrestling business.
Wow. Okay. Thinking back, that's 17 years ago, WrestleMania 23, man. That's a distance back. I didn't even think about that until just now. I mean, that was a while back. We're at 40 now.
Yeah, it's crazy to me to even think that in some respects it seems like a lifetime ago, and in other ways it's I feel like I blinked, and I can still remember putting that match together and talking it over, and I can remember the way that I felt before I walked out, and it's crazy.
I couldn't imagine the rumble from the crowd. You could feel it in your feet, I imagine. I couldn't imagine just being in front of that many people doing what you did, man. That was
nuts. That was a strange one, because when I expected during the day when we walked out and you look around Ford Field, it was like 83. It ended up being like 83,000 people in attendance, right? And I remember looking out in the ring. I was standing in the ring during the day, and I was like, "This is going to be crazy." And then when I walked out, when they hit my music and I walked out on stage, it just looked like a very full 20,000 seat arena. It didn't look like. So it was just kind of a weird feeling. And then I did it, and I went up. I went to the back, took a shower, and then I went up to the luxury boxes where they had a box for family and friends. And that's when I looked out and I saw like this little tiny ring in this giant sea of people, and I was like, "Holy fuck! I just did that. That's crazy." That's what I did.
That's crazy. Is it difficult putting a match like that together?
Not really. Well, yes. So here's the thing about that. It's like normally we do it on the day. Almost every match you see, Raw, SmackDown, has been put together. Sometimes last minute. Sometimes they change it right before you walk through the curtain. So normally the thing happens, like the matches, putting the match together happens on that day. You get to the building at noon. Maybe creative comes out and tells you exactly what's going on at 3 o'clock. So you have from 3 till 7 or 3 until whenever your match is on the show to kind of put it together. Not a whole lot of time. WrestleMania is different in that you've got like 4 days where you meet every single day with all those people. So all the people that were in that ladder match met in a room. We had a ring there, a practice ring, so we could go over stuff. We had a bunch of crash pads, a bunch of ladders of all different shapes and sizes. So, and it was just like, creative. Michael Hayes was the lead producer on that. And I believe Finley was the other one, which Finley was actually in the match. So and then you just kind of, here's what we want to happen. How do you guys, I believe Michael had pretty much laid out the format, and then it was just up to us to kind of plug in different things. And, it was Hornswoggle. They wanted me to do something to Hornswoggle at some point. And so it was him that actually came up with the idea of me hitting him with the Finley roll off the ladder. So, and then it was just a matter of like, well, how do we do this safely? How do I make sure that I don't drop you from all the way up?
Yeah.
So, but so it's hard it's not hard in that sense because you have so much extra time to put it together and to think about it and sort of remember. But it's hard to make stuff like that make sense, and psychology is huge to me. Not what are you doing, but why are you doing it? And I watched that match about a year ago, I want to say, and I was like, I can't watch it. I'm like, I hate it. Just because there's so many things that just don't make sense. There's that one point, like, Edge and I are on the floor, and I let him just walk by me because that wasn't our spot at the time, like stuff like that.
Okay. Man, when did you know you were getting the win for the briefcase? How long ago before the event do you know this stuff?
So initially they had Adam going over in that match. They had, for the first 3 days that we put that together, 2 or 3 days, it was Adam. And then the second to last day, they changed it to me. And, inside fireworks are going off. I'm kind of excited, but I kept that to myself. And I've always tried not to get excited, like super excited about something, because it's wrestling and things change all the time. And if you know my career at all, like things did change in a blink of an eye. So I've always just tried to like just roll with the punches. That's just the way it goes. And I think that's a good attitude to have, because if you go out and you have everything mapped out in your match and the crowd shits on it or the top rope breaks or something like that, like you gotta there isn't a cut. We can't cut. We have to keep going. So you just kind of roll with it.
Yeah. Okay. You've wrestled some of the biggest names in professional wrestling. Have you learned a lot from different wrestlers? I mean, who are some of them, and what are some of the things that you've learned from them?
Man, this is so much just from work. My first time working with Taker, he just wanted to feel me out. He just like, I know you, but I've never worked with you. And I remember he told me, we're not going to talk about anything in the locker room. Just listen to me. Honestly, we didn't talk about a thing. I don't even think he told me what he was going to hit, or whether it was a choke slam or a tombstone, or he just, he literally said, listen to me. I will tell you, kick me. So that's all I had to go out there and just listen to what he said. So that was one of the things that I learned, and I can't really describe it. It's something you just have to do for a while. Going out and listening to the people and understanding that, like, sometimes they're going to react to things and sometimes not. And okay, let's try this other thing. Matt Hardy. I remember one thing specifically. Matt and I did a double clothesline, and it was on a house show. And I remember I'm kind of moving around, and the people just never really, generally when there's a double down, there's some silence for a little bit, and then the people start to, start coming for you. Mm-hmm. And they just weren't doing that. And I went to the back, and I was like, why, what happened there? Like, why weren't they coming? He was like, just sit still. Don't move. Literally don't move. When you do a double down like that, don't move until 7. He was like, It's very specific. So that was one thing that, now, if they're coming right away, you got to come up, because otherwise you'll lose them, right? Like, if they come up and you're not moving, and they'll dip down, and then it's really hard to get them back. But if they're not making any noise, just lay there. And it works almost every time. For some reason, at 7, they'll start coming.
Yeah.
It's little things like that, I guess,
Yeah. You've had matches against several good people, and if you look back over your career, I guess you've had wins over like some of the biggest names in the world. I mean, how is it getting that nod? Does it feel? You said you don't really get excited. You're trying not to get excited. How does it feel knowing that you're going in there and winning? I know you said before that it doesn't really matter about the wins or anything, but knowing that you're working with all of these big name people and making these different stories out in the ring, how does that affect you, I guess, or does it?
There wasn't the entire time that I was working with Taker, I was every night I had to sit and I was forced to sit in the ring and endure that 5-minute intro that he has. And at no point was I ever like, come on, fucking speed this thing up, man. Like, I sat there as a fan every night and just, I can't believe that I'm here. I can't believe I'm doing this. So like externally, I've got to keep my professional face. This is normal. This is my job. But inside, I'm a little kid, I'm a fan. They're like one of my greatest experiences in the business was working with Sting, and I did a little angle with him in TNA where I dressed up like old Surfer Sting when he had the blonde hair.
Oh, I remember seeing that. Yeah.
And that was an idea when I first sat down with him. He said, "Hey," they paired us up. They said, "All right, you guys going to do a little program together?" And Sting said, "Hey, man, I know we've never worked together before, but I just want to let you know that I'm open to doing whatever you want. Like, if you have some ideas, as crazy as they are, fucking shoot them at me." And so I said, well, hey, when I first started out in the business, a lot of people used to compare me to you because I had the bleached blonde hair. So I would hear that from people, like, you kind of remind me of a young Sting. So I said, what if I did that and dressed up like you? And he was like, I love it. Yes. And then he goes, I have all that old gear. I'll bring it and you can wear it. So like all the gear that I was wearing
wow.
was all Sting's actual old gear from the, you know, early late 80s, early 90s or whatever. And
Wow.
and then you know, to top it all off, the cherry on top was Sting actually painted my face. Like, who knows
Oh, wow.
how to do that paint better than Sting himself. So I would be sitting in the dressing room, Sting just talking to me, bullshit with me, and like I can't believe I'm doing this.
Wow, man. Some cool experiences, some really cool experiences. I know for me, my love for wrestling started in '97 when I was 7 years old watching WCW with, Sting versus the NWO was one big story. The other one was Macho Man and DDP. Just seeing these stories and stuff really tied me in and made me want to be a wrestler. Was there anything kind of like that for you, or were you ever really into wrestling when you were younger?
I wasn't into wrestling when I was young. I hated it. I thought it was stupid. I fell into the it's fake camp. But one night I happened to be watching and I saw this guy who had shaved his head and he drove a pickup truck to the ring and, you know, middle fingers and beer. And I was like, all right, he's kind of cool. I'll watch. And then I had some roommates who watched every week, and I was like, I'll watch with you guys just to see what he'd do. And then I slowly but surely got roped into everything else. Like, well, Undertaker's pretty cool too, and Kane and DX is pretty cool, and you know, the Nation of Domination at the time and stuff like that. But Austin was it. Austin was always like my man. I became a fan within like 2 weeks. Like I went from hating the business, thinking it was stupid, to being like, that's all I thought about. That's all I would talk about with my friends at work. Kind of crazy.
Yeah. Did that lead you into trying to pursue this as a career?
You know, I never even, it never dawned on me. Like I at no point do I remember thinking, how do you do this? It was such a weird thing. I figured it was kind of like the carny where you just had to be born into it kind of thing. And I was at a party one night and somebody said, hey, my friend that I work with has a kid that's going to wrestling school. And I was like, what? Wrestling school? Yeah, you can go like learn how to do this stuff. So I left the party early that night, which was unheard of at that time. And I went home and I looked. It wasn't even Google at the time. It was like Ask Jeeves or something like that. The old school dial-up internet. And I looked up wrestling schools and I found one. And I remember thinking, I probably won't find anything close to me. So I looked I figured I'm going to have to go to like one of the big cities. So either LA, Chicago, or New York. And so the closest one to me was Chicago, which is about 3 hours away. So I started looking there and I thought, if I can, you know, if I get into this, I can drive down every other weekend because I worked every other weekend. So I was like, I can drive down and I'll sleep in my car and go to wrestling school. I just happened to find this one wrestling school that was in the Chicagoland area, and I reached out to them. And he never called me back, but he passed my number on to a guy in Green Bay who was just starting up a wrestling school. And that guy called me. And in our first conversation, he said something to the effect of like, what do you think about, who are your favorite wrestlers? Of course, I told him Steve Austin. And then he's like, what do you think about like Ric Flair and Bret Hart and stuff like that? And I said, honestly, those names sound familiar, but I don't really know. So just, wow. You know, he initially thought this guy's never going to make it. But here we are.
Here we are. And I think he might have made it. Maybe. He might have made it. Done a thing or two, right?
Couple things.
So from there, did you, just a few. So from there, did you go into the indies, or did you, how does it work getting into developmental? Because I've heard that you went to OVW, correct?
I did eventually, but I was.
Okay. How did it work?
I started in '99, so I think January of '99 I started training, And sometime in 2005, I got signed and I went to OVW. So it was like 6 years, 5 or 6 years of humping it on the indies and trying to, make connections and learn as much as I could. And, I had some good trainers who were able to teach me a lot of the basics. Like these are guys that I'm still friends with today, and they're some of the most brilliant. Like they actually know the business. They guys that never necessarily made it themselves, but I was fortunate that they knew what they were talking about, But they only knew so much. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so they only knew so much. And then so they taught me, they were able to teach me those basics. And then I kind of had to go out and hump it and make mistakes, and I'd pick a little tidbit of information up from this person and one from this person. And so like I said, 6 years, and I kept sending tapes, and I remember at first it was Kevin Kelly that was in the office at WWE. Then it was Dr. Tom, and then it ended up being Tommy Dreamer, and I dealt with all of those people. And each time, like, it was like starting over from square one. Kevin Kelly and I developed a rapport, and then when Dr. Tom came in, he didn't know me, so I had to kind of like sort of start over from square one. And I just kept humping it. And finally, after 5, 6 years, all of those connections and that information just converged. They say, like, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I truly believe that, because it was a bunch of different. It's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like making soup, right? If you make chili, you're missing a couple ingredients. It's something else. It's not chili. So it's like you need all these different ingredients. And fortunately, I happened to work really hard, and I happened to be in the right place at the right time. Well,
right on, man. So was it difficult to get, you said it was difficult to get from OVW into WWE, correct?
It was kind of, when I was there was still no. I remember at one point before I got hired, I asked Dr. Tom one day. I was like, what do we need to do? What do we need to do differently? And he said, Ken, I don't know. He's like, we don't know what we're looking for, but we know when we see it. So he goes, if we could bottle it and sell it, we would, but we can't. So just keep hustling, keep working, keep trying different things. So it was hard to get into OVW, but then, like I said, once I got to OVW, it's all of these, like, the best of the best on the indies.
Yeah.
All under one roof, and they're all trying to make it to the active roster. So it's just like you're competing with them. It was a friendly competition. So then it was like, okay, well, what I got hired here now, what do I need to do to move on to the next level? And so it's just, you just got to keep hustling, keep working. Sometimes the door closes for a little while for people. You hear about people all the time. Ryback was one who, I believe he was there when I first started, and then he got fired, and then they opened up Deep South, and he got hired at Deep South, and he was down in Deep South the entire time that I was on the active roster. They kept trying to bring him up, and then it just didn't work out. And finally, it happened for him, and he had a solid run. You just never know.
Okay. What was your first experience in WWE like? Like your first matches, or were you on SmackDown was the first time that I saw you. Were you on WWE TV before then?
Well, I did. If you go back and look, I mean, there are probably at least 10 matches that I had where I was just enhancement talent, where I was Ken Henderson, the local guy that didn't get any entrance music, who would just get squashed by whomever. I worked Rodney Mack twice. I worked Billy and Chuck, Ginger and O'Hare, La Resistance, Regal. I mean, it was like all these Sean O'Hare and S.A. Rios was my first one, and then I had a couple dark matches in there. So those like several years. What was the question again? What I forget why.
That was basically, were you on TV or were you on WWE programming before getting onto the main roster, as it were?
I was, and then so 5 weeks after Paul Heyman got the pencil at OVW, Tommy called me up and he said, "Hey, they want to see your," because I had just started doing the microphone thing, the introduction.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "They want to see you at SmackDown this week in Columbus, Ohio, and they want you to do your whole gimmick. They want to see it." So I went there and put together. Finley was our producer, and it was me versus. It was going to be me versus Funaki in a dark match. Funaki going over with the super kick at the end. But they wanted to still see my whole intro and everything. And right before, I remember being in gorilla position doing push-ups and just kind of thinking about what I was going to do. And Vince walked up, and Vince never sits down to watch the preliminary matches. He always sits down like right before SmackDown as the pyro's going off usually. So he walked up, and then I remember Dave Lagana walked around the corner and he said, "Hey, there's been a change." And I immediately thought, they cut it. They cut my match. It's all right. It's all good. Next time. Excuse me. And he said, "We need to come up with a finisher for you because you're going over. This is now going to be a televised match. It's going to be on Velocity, and welcome aboard." And he like stuck out his hand, and it was just like that. And I remember, for that 6 years building up to that point, I was like, I just want to work here. I just want to be here. I just want to be here right now. Why can't I get a break? Why can't the fucking roads all converge? And at that moment, I was like, I'm glad that it took me this long, because I was so confident in my ability. I was nervous, but not in a bad way at all. It was just like this positive stress. And I was able to go out there, and I knew that as long as I did me, that it would be different and noticed. And it was. And I came back through the curtain. I got a big thumbs up from the boss. And then Johnny Ace came walking up to me like, "You just got yourself a job, kid." And then it was like
That's a solid.
Literally, everybody does Johnny Ace. You can't tell a Johnny Ace story without doing his voice, I think.
Yeah.
But that was
Power to the people.
Yeah. Solid. But it was we're off to the races. And then it was, it's funny, everybody that makes it, and some, people that make it big, people will say that person's an overnight success. And it's crazy how quickly I went from, being at the grocery store with the bag of potatoes and the dish soap and going, I got to put one back, to traveling the world and not having to worry about that so much. It's just that it just happens in a blink of an eye. And honestly, that 4 years that I was with WWE was a blur to me. I still I remember some things, but there's so much that I forget. And every once in a while, somebody will send me a link to a match, and I'm like, I don't even remember wrestling that person. I don't remember that happening. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts, man. What is there different crowds like all over the world? Like, are you going to get a different reaction from different places and stuff? Like if you go overseas to like for like tribute to the troops, or if you go to London, or if you go to Canada, or even if you're here, is there a different reaction wherever you go?
There really is. There is.
Oh, I was just going to say, and how do you keep them?
I would say, throughout my entire career, the most rabid fans in the world are in Europe, all over, and especially England, Scotland, Ireland. But when I first started in WWE, my very first tour, we went to Italy. We did I think 3 or 4 dates in Italy, and it was the first time that WWE had ever been there. So
Wow.
there were fans like rocking the bus as we were pulling into the. It was, and
Holy
then like
cow.
when we went to the Philippines, I feel like that was the first time we had been in the Philippines, and there was this mall that we were staying, the hotel that we were staying at connected to a mall, and there was 3 levels, and we walked through it wasn't even like an appearance. It was just like if we walked over to just go to the mall to hang out, 3 levels of people just screaming, going crazy, like Beatles shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
That probably must have been overwhelming, like just not even knowing what the hell to do at that point. Just seeing all these people like swarming for you, man.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what to do. I mean, shoot.
And then I remember being in Portugal, working Taker. I think it was Portugal anyways. Working Taker and doing stuff that we had done every night, because I was practically married to him for several months, like probably 6 months to a year. And whenever he would grab my hand and back up to go to the corner, people would start to come up like, oh, he's gonna go for old school, and like they just weren't reacting to anything that we were doing. And I remember at some point we're like 5-6 minutes into the match, and Taker was like, "Fuck, these guys suck, man. Like, let's just take." He goes, "You know what? Sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose. Let's take it home." And we just finished. And that was an experience where, instead of us just going through the motions and doing this stuff, like, they're not into this right now. So let's still give them a solid match, but let's cut it early. Give somebody else that time.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of interviews where people say that wrestling and acting are completely separate things or nothing alike, and one doesn't help influence the other. You were in Behind Enemy Lines Colombia. What was that experience like for you?
See, I wish more people would. I hate that mentality. It is the same. It is the fucking same. Like, yeah, it's different. It's like the difference between play acting, stage acting, and film acting. Yes, they're different, but they're related. And at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. Like, somebody hands us a script and says, say these words. I want you to emote in this way. I want you to be mad here. I want you to be sad, or whatever. Like, and that's what it is. It's acting. So I wish more people would actually take pride in that, and take acting classes and things like that. Because like wrestlers generally throughout history were kind of corny, like
Yeah.
like, and that's kind of its allure to some degree. It's like,
Yeah.
we get it. It's just that's the way it is. It's kind of cheesy. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's bad acting, but like, you watch bad movies sometimes. It's not that.
B movies? Is it like B movie acting, I would say?
It tends to be like, sometimes if you really watch, it's pretty bad acting, but like you still enjoy it.
Yeah.
And you're still,
Oh yeah.
you still suspend your disbelief and forgive that. It's like, I don't know if we were talking about this interview or an earlier one, why does the guy, when you shoot him into the ropes, why does he turn and pivot and come back to you? Like,
Yeah.
it's things like that where we can look at that and go like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. But
Yeah.
it's just wrestling.
Yeah. As far as on set and filming for Behind Enemy Lines Colombia, what was that experience like for you?
So that was a huge difference, because WWE, we would work sometimes like 17, 18 hours a day between traveling. I'd get up at 4:00 sometimes 3:00 in the morning here in Minnesota, go to the airport, fly. Then when you get there, you can't check into your hotel because you're too early. So you got to just go right to the gym or go get something to eat. And, it's like a really, really long day. And then you're up all day, go to the arena, get done at 10:30 at night. And then you got to either drive to the next town or find a hotel and sleep it off. Fuck, where were we going with this?
Behind Enemy Lines Colombia, man.
Oh. Yeah, thank you. Too many chair
Yeah,
shots.
no
bro.
problem.
Way too many.
You're good.
But I was used to just doing whatever was asked of me, and you carry your own bags, and you get your own food and stuff like that. And when I was on set, it was like there was somebody that was always, "Hey, I'll carry your bags for you." And I was like, "No, I'm good, thank you." Because in the wrestling business, if you have somebody carrying your bags for you, you got heat with the boys. Like, oh, look at
Wow.
this motherfucker thinks he's special. He thinks he's better than everybody else. Like when I was there, if somebody would go and change into like a different locker room, that was
was a
not a
big
good
no-no.
thing. No, everybody changed together. Like when Austin and Rock were in the WWE, they didn't have separate locker rooms. They changed with everybody else. So that was different. And I remember one day we were filming and the assistant director said something like, she's like, "Guys, we've got 45 minutes. We got to get this shot and we got to get out of here." And I just like pulled her aside and I was like, "Hey, let's just fucking stay until it's done." And she was like, no, that's not how it works here, Because in Hollywood, you have like, I don't know if it's 10 hours is the normal schedule, but like if you go beyond 10 hours, you got to pay double time and then triple time. And
Holy
then
cow.
it's like really controlled by the union. The union contracts are very, very specific. And I remember one of the guys,
Wow.
we went over like 15 minutes and he complained to his agent or his manager, and then that manager called the production team and was like, "You guys went over on time." So that was
Wow.
that was kind of crazy to me, being treated like that.
Yeah. So you go through your WWE career and you're going all the way up to what, 2009 you were there is the last time you were there, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. You go there, you go through all of this stuff, and there were two big names that you got to have their last match with. You had the last match with Eddie Guerrero and with Umaga.
Yep.
What was that? What does that mean to you, having their last matches?
I've struggled for years to come up with like an accurate way of saying this, and it's just like I fucking hate that they're dead, right?
Yeah.
But the fact is they are dead, and that's something special that like I have that other people don't have, and it's like it's very meaningful to me, and I'm honored that I was able to do that. And I think in both cases they were solid outings. It wasn't like, and then every year on or around the date of Eddie's passing or his birthday, I see all the people posting the little Eddie spot where he tossed me the chair, and
Yeah.
I get caught. So it's kind of a cool experience. And then the other one was I had just left the company. I was on doing the first stuff that I did outside the company. We were in Australia on the Hulk Hogan tour, and I wrestled Umaga. And I remember he had just left WWE as well, and we both kind of had a chip on our shoulders. And he was normally one that would like to, I don't want to say phone it in, but like we don't have to go out there and do all these false finishes and stuff. We'll give him a solid match, but we don't have to, we're not trying to have a match of the night. And he was like, "We're going to fucking kill it tonight. Like, that eyes are going to be on this. Let's show them what they're missing out on," kind of thing. So.
Yeah. Right on, man. Right on. You go from WWE being Mr. Money in the Bank and former US champion, you leave there and you go to TNA. Was that always the thing? We're going to go to the next biggest promotion right now to get the most money that we can for our value, or was it just something that happened?
No, I think that should be the goal, right? We want to make money in this business, and I want to do this. I want to be able to provide for me and my family. So I guess that's the most logical thing to do. But again, I had a real chip on my shoulder when I left WWE. So it wasn't something that I needed some time off. I needed some time off from the business. I had a really bad attitude at the time. And that bad attitude was a lot of the reason why I'm no longer with WWE, you know, and it stuck with me for a really, really long time. But yeah, eventually, I remember Booker T called me up one day and said, like, hey, it's fucking the water is fine down here at TNA. You know, like you're gonna have some fun. Come on down. And then I didn't go right away. I feel like I was like 8 to 10 months before I actually started thinking about making my debut down there. And then I was happy when I did. But I still had that chip on my shoulder. Looking back on it, I wish I didn't. You know, I wish I had handled it differently. But it is what it is.
You got to go against all kinds of big names in TNA as well, man.
I did. Yep.
Like Kurt Angle,
Mhm.
Dane, Jeff Hardy. I mean,
Yep.
so many big names. What were
Bully.
some of your bigger memories from there? Bully Ray, yeah, he's a big one.
The match I had with Kurt Angle was probably my favorite match I've ever had in my career. The cage match we did
Oh, wow.
at Lockdown 2009. And just that match specifically, there's some funny bits. Like, so when Kurt puts matches together, like I said earlier, you generally do it on the day, but Kurt works a little differently where he starts thinking weeks in advance. And he's putting stuff together. I remember him coming to me like 3 weeks before we were going to have that match. And he's like, yeah, I got it all laid out, man. We got some good stuff. And we'll obviously sit down and you can plug your stuff in, but I got a pretty solid layout. And I just like, that's crazy to me. I've never worked that way before. It's always like, what are we doing tonight? You know? And so we were initially, he said, they're going to give us 23 minutes, which is a fairly decent amount of time for a pay-per-view.
It's a
and
pretty good match, man.
And then, so we put it all together, and on the day, they said, we're shaving 10 minutes off your match. You got 13. And I remember Kurt looking at me, and he goes, we're going 23. Fuck them. He goes, I'll take the heat. And I, you know, in the business, if you go 30 seconds over your time, you got some explaining to do. But I just remember it's Kurt, and all right, man, whatever you think. And then the other thing was he wanted to do that moonsault off the top of the cage, but he didn't want to tell anybody about it because he knew that they would have told him you can't do it. So it's better to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. And so that was something that, like, I remember when D'Lo was our producer, and every time we would come to that portion of the match, it would just be like, you know, we kind of talk, all right, then you go up and just do a moonsault, right? He'll hit the moonsault. And he never said, I'm going to go all the way up to the top. But I remember we're in the ring, and Slick was our referee, and Slick goes, all right, guys, take it home. And we had only been going for like 10 minutes. And we just kept going, kind of ignored him. And then a couple minutes goes by, and he's starting to get more and more frantic. He's like, guys, you got to take it home. They're fucking yelling at me. And then, like, Kurt at some point he turned to him and he goes, tell him to fuck off. And obviously, at the time, they didn't have two-way microphones. You didn't have two-way communication like WWE does now, where the referee can talk to the back. But it was just you know, he could hear what they were saying. And at some point, you just see Slick kind of look up at the hard cam, and he just went, I don't know, man. Fucking. And we just kept going. And I'm glad we did, honestly, like, in hindsight, because we were able to tell this really cool story. Like, that's all I've ever wanted to do is just tell fun stories, interesting stories. And I feel like we were able to do that with that match. And then I came back, and not even a shred of heat from the office for me. Because, like, D'Lo right away was like, I know what happened there. Like, you know, it's Kurt. Like, and they just sort of let it go. The only thing that got me a little bit of heat was AJ. AJ, if you know him, is like the sweetest, the kindest, the nicest guy in the world, the most laid back. And he came up to me and he was like, "Hey man, just let you know they're fucking," because he was working Ric Flair that night. I was thinking it was the first time he was working with Ric Flair. He goes, they just cut my match by like 7 minutes because you guys went late. And so he wasn't mad, he was disappointed, which is even worse than
Yeah.
him just
I'd
I wish he
imagine,
was
man.
pissed at me. I wish he was just pissed at me, you know?
Yeah. Man, what was it like winning the world championship? The first time you won against Jeff Hardy, correct? And then the second time you beat Sting, right?
Yeah.
What was it like either of those times, man?
It was like a really fun. The way they booked that match. If you go back and watch it, it was like I kept overcoming. They kept throwing all these obstacles at me, and I was overcoming them, and you know. So that was a moment where I was like, they believe in me, you know.
Yeah.
And when they reacted to me winning, it was like that's what we wanted. And again, it's like had I been booked to lose that match, as long as I got the reaction that we were after, like that's the goal. But it was it was really fun. But at the same time, again, not to beat a dead horse, my attitude was the shits at the time. And
Yeah.
I remember doing an interview a week or two after I won the title, and I said something like, I was kind of sour on the business, and I said something like, these guys, we bust our asses, and then people backstab each other over this fucking toy belt, or basically, something like that. And I can't imagine being the people in the office at that time, hearing their world champion say something like that. And they quickly removed it. They quickly took it off my hands.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I guess my point is that I didn't take it as seriously as I wish I would have.
How did you learn to grow and to be able to let go of things and move forward to not have that sour attitude?
It took me a really long time to realize that, like, for years I blamed other people for me leaving WWE. Like, so and so fucking buried me. These two guys buried me. But the thing is like, had I done what I was supposed to be doing, had I busted my ass, had I left it all in the ring every single time, their opinion wouldn't have mattered. Like, they wouldn't have been able to do that. Like, I don't know. It's just, at some point you've got to take ownership in all of your failures. And I think there's power there. Like, even things that seem like they're out of your control completely, like I had a hand in that, and, and being, I guess, like I was really bitter for a really long time, and this hatred for these people. And somebody said to me one time, like, being that way, hating somebody else, hatred for somebody else is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And it's just like, that's true. Those people that I hated, it bothered me every day, or every time I saw them or saw something related to them, or a video or whatever. I fucking hate that guy. Fuck him. And then I remember thinking, like, but they don't care. Like, that's not ruining their day. Like, they're on to the next thing. They're worried about what they're doing, and I'm the only one that's affected by this. So.
Right. Okay. Right on, man. Did you always think you were going to become a trainer? Running your own training academy?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, wow.
Early on, I remember as I was going through the process of learning, I remember thinking, like, someday I want to be able to like round off these corners for people. So all these mistakes and things that I had to do to like learn, like I said, I worked for 6 years, and then 3 months after I got hired, I looked back at my last independent match before I got hired, and I was like, I I was blown away by how much I didn't know. And so I always wanted to like give people an easier way to follow their dreams. So I feel like again, they don't know what they're looking for, and there is no cookie cutter formula to success in this business, but like I definitely know what steps one needs to take to make sure that you're successful. And no, success isn't guaranteed ever, but like, again, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
You've had success in training these guys too, because you've had people go up to NXT and stuff like that as well, correct?
Yeah, so like Darius and Dante Martin in AEW Darius was our first graduate. Dante's a graduate of the academy, and we got Julia Hart was one of our trainees. Tiffany Stratton right now, who just saw her last night or this morning on Elimination
She's
Chamber.
blowing it up.
She's blowing it up. Von Wagner, there's Gable Steveson. He actually was hired by the company before he came to us, but yeah, so that stuff is rewarding. And then also some of my others, there's more on the way, and it's fun to watch their growth and to see them getting that first big match, or getting a call to do extra work. I remember that feeling, and I'm like so happy for them, and I try to like prepare them as much as I possibly can. Here's what you can expect, and this is the way I would suggest you handle it,
And all your success that you've had in the wrestling world, man, what is something you could give, some advice you could give to anybody aspiring to do literally anything?
Fucking never take no for an answer. And if you're breathing air and you're awake, your eyes are open, like you should be thinking about the business and trying to get better and just continue to learn. That's just keep hustling, keep grinding. I've got students who graduated 3 or 4 years ago that still come to camp a couple times a week, and they're polishing. They're always polishing, and they're working. A lot of times we're working with rookies who are just starting out, and they're in there working on those, because you not only have to have those basic building blocks, but you also have to be able to work with a lot of different types of people. Because even when you go to WWE, you're not always going to work with people that are really, really good. Sometimes people get hired that are not good wrestlers. They're just in the right place at the right time. They got the right look, right? And so you've got to try to, okay, how do I make this person look good? Instead of, well, I'm going to fucking bury this guy. I'm going to go out there and run circles around him. Like that doesn't work. And the thing is like when people do those things, the boys in the back know what you're doing. They can see it. They can go like, well, you're not fucking helping that person out, and that's your job. It's the most unselfish business, I think, in the world, because like I'm always worried about like, okay, how can I make my opponent look good? Not, and obviously, you have to do things to make yourself look good too. But if you go into it with the idea that like you should be able to work with, people say it's like that guy can work with a broomstick, and there are people out there who can have a match with an invisible man. I used to do that in camp. I would tell my students like, all right, work the invisible man, and like you can have a match and make it solid and make it mean something. So
taking actual back bumps, high bumps, flip bumps, all that good junk.
Yep.
I've never seen anybody have a match with the Invisible Man, but I would like to see that happen. You know what I mean? I've never seen that. That's a pretty unique idea, man.
I don't want to see
it something that you came up with, or
I don't want to see it on TV necessarily. Right? Like I get.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, there was I don't remember what the name of which promotion it was, but somebody had like the Invisible Man versus the Invisible Man. Do you remember this match?
I don't.
Yeah, it was like the
I think
referee was the only.
I think Bryce Remsburg was the referee, correct?
Yeah, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, it tells a story. Like you can see, without seeing it, you can see what's going on. You can imagine it.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a good little exercise. Again, I've completely forgotten about it until we just started talking right now. But that was, I don't know who came up with that. It might have been Davari, my original partner in the academy.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to bring that back.
That would be pretty cool. I mean, it'd give them a different insight, and I wouldn't know how to have a match with an Invisible Man. I can tell you that. I mean, that would be, like I said, that blows my mind just thinking about how you would go about doing that. You have a tie-up, you have a leg sweep, you have a wrist lock. What do you got going on? I mean,
You got some chain.
know.
You can chain wrestle with yourself. And you can get sent off the ropes, and you can do
Oh
all kinds of
wow,
stuff.
man.
Yeah, just keep it simple, but tell a story. Tell that basic story.
So storytelling is at the top of the list, though. I know, like you said, a lot goes into the soup, but storytelling's up at the top because you got to bring the audience in.
I think so. For me, it is, anyways. Like I know some people just like to see cool moves. Like there is
Yeah.
and I think a majority of fans, there's people out there who like all kinds of different stuff. The mainstream majority of people, they just want to be told stories. They want to suspend that disbelief. They want to enjoy what they're watching. And one of the greatest matches I've seen in several years was at the Elimination Chamber last year when it was Roman Reigns versus Sami Zayn. And if you
Oh my
watch,
gosh, that was a beautiful story, man.
if you watch, those guys didn't touch each other for 5 minutes. Like I put a timer on it, and I was like, I believe after the ding ding ding, after the bell rang, they didn't touch each other for like 4.5 to 5 minutes. And then when they did, they locked up, and they didn't just start doing moves to each other. They built it slowly, and the crowd built behind it. You can develop that anticipation. I was watching one of the matches last night. The people were they were fucking making noise, and these two just locked up and started doing moves to each other, and everybody shut up.
Wow.
So one thing, if you're circling your opponent, and granted, if you're on a show and the promoter tells you like you guys have only 5 minutes, you got to get in and out, you can't really waste a whole lot of time. But if you're circling and they're making noise, don't lock up, because like the minute you lock up, they shut the fuck up. It happens every time.
Oh wow. Wow. So you wait for them to get quieter and then lock up.
And then give them, and
Then
they'll come up again for you a little bit.
okay. And you just got to keep building. You got to keep their anticipation. You got to if you're the bad guy, if you're the heel, you got to make them know that you're the heel. You can't just go out there and expect they know who you are already,
Yep.
because every audience is different, that I've been to in Fort Smith and in Mountain Pine here close to Hot Springs. I was a babyface my first 4 matches. My last 2 matches I've been a heel, and I absolutely love it when they're booing me.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's been wonderful, I just tell them to shut up. They don't know what greatness is until I'm out there and all this stuff. And it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
But, yeah, man, I did want to say, I saw you at a house show, a TNA house show here in town at the convention center, back in 2000, I don't know, I think it was 2011 or something like that, maybe. And you were going to get Jeff Jarrett in the main event, I believe. And I was standing outside the fence, and my friend Jordan at the time, I don't know where he's going to, but he was in Sting face paint and everything, and he was like standing there, and you got up on the ropes and you did the Mr. And then it got quiet, and he goes, Kennedy, and you go, no, that guy's dead, or something like that. and then you finished off your thing. I just thought that was the coolest thing. You were able to interact with him being right there. I was standing right there. I was like, what just happened? You know, in that same moment, Jeff Jarrett told security to throw me out because I was telling Jarrett he didn't have any class and stuff like that. It was great. But I did want to share that memory, that moment with you, because it was a really cool moment. There's only been 3 shows that have come to town that weren't local, really. That was WWE in 2009. SmackDown came to the convention center. It was a house show. And then TNA came twice. And I got the pleasure to be able to see you wrestle at one of those shows. And it was awesome, man. It was awesome.
That's cool.
But winding down on the episode, man, usually I end the episode with something that I took from a very famous wrestling podcaster that I apply to all of my episodes, from a Mr. Chris Van Vliet. And it is being very grateful, because I am super grateful. You have no reason to come on this show. But, I'm very grateful for everybody that comes on here. And normally I'll say 3 things I'm grateful for, and then I'll ask you. For mine, it usually doesn't ever change. My support system, that being my family, my friends, my fiance, my wonderful 2 daughters, and anybody who's really supported me throughout the years. I'm very grateful for them. For my second one, it's obviously you, the guys that come on the show that have no reason to really be here. I'm just some dude talking to people, you know? So I'm very grateful for everybody and anybody that comes on to the show. No matter how big or small, it doesn't matter to me. It's a really awesome experience to have anybody on and be able to learn from them. And the third thing is the good Lord above, because, man, if he wasn't there, man, I don't know what the hell I'd do. None of us would really be here, you know? Not pushing anything on anybody. That's just the way I believe. You know what I mean? But
Sure.
What are 3 things that you're grateful for in this very moment?
I would say I would mirror what you said in the sense that, like, having that support system. My wife and my kids are just amazing. I have a wife who truly, like, supports me. She's looking out for me all the time. And I would say the fans. Like, I can't do this job without people wanting to watch. And you said, like, that I don't have to do this. Like, we don't have to do anything, right? But, like, I do want to do this stuff. I do want to help people like you out. And we all have to start somewhere. And man, you messaged me. People message me all the time asking me for interviews and stuff, and I usually I ask, hey, can I see some of your other interviews? And when I see that, like, you're putting some effort into this, I'm more than happy to do it. For one, it helps me. Like, it promotes my business. When I was in WWE, there were people who would complain that on their day off they had to do media, and I always welcomed it. I was like, fuck it, that's free advertising for me, you know? And
Right. Yeah.
And what else am I thankful for? Man, see, I'm not religious myself, but I understand I just community, I guess, community in this business.
Yeah.
And we're all connected. We really are all connected, and everybody knows everybody. Or, what is it, 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon? There's probably less degrees of separation between everybody in the wrestling business. That goes from everybody, from the top, from Vince McMahon all the way down. So, yeah, I guess that'd be mine.
Man, I appreciate the hell out of you coming on again, dude. It means the world to me that you would do this. And I appreciate you wanting to help people out like me, because, man, it's really tough at times getting started on stuff and working on things and trying to really do whatever research I can on talking to you guys. I want to be able to talk to you about stuff and be able to relate to what you're saying and everything like that. Luckily, I'm able to do stuff to do that. So thank you in a large way for coming on here and helping out a guy like me. You know, it means a lot to me.
Absolutely, my pleasure, man. So thank you for having me on.
Well, man,
Thanks for giving me the platform. So
yes, sir. Not a problem. Not a problem. Anytime, you know. But yeah, I guess, man, I'll let you get back to doing whatever it is you're doing for the rest of your day. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. If you're free at any point in the future, I'd love to have you back on at some point.
yeah, absolutely. Just reach out to me anytime, man. I appreciate you.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
See ya.
That episode was just awesome. I'm so grateful for Ken for coming on. It was just a really cool episode. I got to talk to him for an hour. He gave me an hour of his time, and I'm very grateful for that. Got to hear all kinds of interesting things that I had no idea about. You know, I didn't know he wasn't into wrestling. Most of the time, wrestlers are into wrestling before they come in. But for him, it didn't start that way, and I am so thankful that it did. I got to watch him as a kid on TV, and then I got the pleasure to see him live in person here at the Hot Springs Convention Center in 2011 for a TNA house show. Ken, thank you so much. It means the world to me that you came on here. And hopefully sometime in the future we can get you back on, buddy. But right now we're going to look at tomorrow's episode. Tomorrow's episode is one that I've been trying to get for, God, since we started the show. We are talking to my brother, Alex. Alex Shirley coming on here tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a great episode. And guys, you're going to want to tune in for it because this guy, he played high school football. He was in my backyard wrestling promotion, and now he is an avid card collector. So we are getting into all kinds of stuff, all kinds of good things. But the most important thing about him coming on is, without him, none of these guests would have came on here. And we'll get into that tomorrow. Until then, though, guys, never forget to always listen when Adam talks. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.